Every now and again, I like to review a hidden gem that probably nobody has seen apart from me. Today is one of those days, so grab yourself a pen and paper so that you can write down the name of this film after I've done the review. I would hate for you to forget the title of it and miss out. Hi guys, so just for the benefit of anyone who isn't very smart, I was only joking before. I am very aware of how famous this film is. This was actually the first film I ever bought on DVD back in 2002. That wasn't an intentional decision to make this my first. It was literally the case that I was in a store this one time. I just bought a PS2 with the DVD capability and I just had to buy a DVD, any DVD. So out of a very small selection in this one particular shop, Night of the Living Dead was the best choice. So that's the one that I went for. So for the very briefest time, Night of the Living Dead was the only DVD in my DVD collection. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, why buy Night of the Living Dead when it's in the public domain? It's free on YouTube. Well, firstly, there was no YouTube back in 2002. Now, I will admit that at some point I lost that copy of Night of the Living Dead, or gave it away maybe, because I had to re-buy this film many, many years later, which would have been after the advent of YouTube. But there's just something about this film that, for a collector, it's just begging to be owned. You know, I like having this on the shelf because of how much of a classic film it is. Plus, it completes my Romero of the Dead series of films, if you like. In terms of a plot for this, it's very, very thin. It's a very simple setup. We've got 7 people in a farmhouse trying to survive a zombie onslaught. The outbreak is very, very fresh at this point. It's literally just happened. Most of these characters are in their first day of experiencing this, or maybe their second day. So they've got to try and board the house up and prevent the zombies from getting into the house as best they can. And this is essentially the story for the entire 90 minutes. Now, something that surprised me a little bit on this latest rewatch was the fact that you do get an explanation for the virus in this. In my head, this was the zombie series where you get no explanation for anything that's going on. And I think with all of the sequels, that is the case. But in this first film, you do get a sort of theory as to how it all started, because the characters are watching TV broadcasts at various times throughout the film, and the media report that the virus has started because of some like space junk that was coming towards Earth or something, and it had radiation on it, and the radiation somehow got through the Earth's atmosphere and turned people into zombies. It's a very 50s sort of sci-fi explanation, although I guess this film is a 50s sci-fi film at heart, even though it came out in 69. It's a bit weird that it's black and white, actually. 69 seems a bit late in the day for black and white. I was only watching Curse of Frankenstein the other week, which came out in 57, and that's in colour. So I don't know if Romero made this in black and white for artistic reasons, or maybe this particular production, it was just cheaper to do in black and white. I don't know, but I think most of the films I've seen in the 60s would have been in colour. This film came out right at the back end of the 60s, and it's in black and white. But in terms of the explanation for the outbreak, it's an official explanation rather than a definitive one, because I think there's a good chance that the government are just telling the media what to say. The explanation that's given, it just sounds a little bit too out there for me, but make your own mind up. Supposedly there was just one professional actor in this, i.e. the lead guy. I think everybody else in it was either a friend of a friend or just some local amateur actor. And it really shows. Although, to be fair, it's not just the acting that's shaky in this film. It's also the way that the characters are written. I suspect Romero was just completely laser focused on the zombies side of this and wasn't too fussed about what was going on with the characters or with their personalities. Take Barbara, for instance. By God, is she insufferable in this film. She's all right in the opener with her brother in the graveyard, and actually some of her physical acting is pretty decent, her running and sliding and getting into a car to escape a zombie. Once she arrives at the house, though, holy hell. Now, I get that in real life some people would get paralysed by fear in a situation like this, and it would render them unable to speak or to be of any use, but that does not make for an entertaining movie, and it's just painful to watch Barbara in this film for long stretches Although, ironically enough, she does get the best death in the movie when she's swallowed up by the zombie horde. That's really cool, and it's doubly effective because her brother suddenly shows up, plus the same zombie from the beginning, which I thought was quite clever. So when it comes to Barbara, she's all right at the start and at the end, but in the middle, my word, there's like an hour we have to sit with her, and it's just bad viewing. Another character I don't like, Cooper. Now, I get the fact that he's meant to be sort of the human threat in this. In most zombie films, there's always a human threat, but it's small fry in this. It's one reckless husband, whereas in Dawn of the Dead, we get that massive group of bikers. In Day of the Dead, we get the big group of soldiers who are going a bit crazy. I'm not sure this film needed a human threat, really, given how small the cast is and how self-contained the story is. The militia that are sort of wandering around the local fields, accidentally killing human beings, maybe that was all the human threat that we needed in this particular film, because Cooper is just so annoying. His decision making, the way that he just doesn't listen to other people, it's not quite as insufferable as Barbara. At least we're getting some entertainment out of Cooper sometimes, but still. The other characters are passable, Julie and her boyfriend, but whenever there's a scene where these other characters have got to interact with each other and the one professional is doing something else, the standard of the acting at that point really shines through. It suddenly feels like we're at a dramatic society on a Thursday night or something. It's not helped by the fact that the audio is still not great in this film, even in 2022. With all the releases they've had, you'd think they might have been able to do something with the audio, but it's still a little bit tinny and old for me. It's a little bit at odds with how good the picture looks now. So on the whole, I'd say that the characterization and the acting in this really stops this film from becoming a masterpiece. It's definitely a classic film, but there's a difference between a classic and a masterpiece. This film is one of those and not the other. But the zombies are what it's all about, really, isn't it? And on that score, this film still packs a punch, even in 2022. The zombies are smarter in this one than the sequels. I really noticed that a lot this time around. They can pick up rocks in this one and crowbars and bash in the windows. They've got some semblance of brain power there. You don't get that in the later films. Like in Dawn of the Dead, for example, you've got these massive big windows in the shopping mall and the zombies will just kind of lean against them going, they won't kind of bash them in. There's a character in the sequel who picks up like an M16 and just carries it for the whole movie, but he doesn't do anything with it. Like if that was the first movie, that zombie would probably try and bash the windows in with that M16. So the zombies are definitely scarier in this first film. There's a real sense of power and force about them when they're trying to push their way through the barricades towards the end. That is a fantastic finale. You really feel the weight of all these limbs and arms coming through into the house, and it's just absolutely terrifying. And then you get that final twist at the end. You know what? I'm not going to spoil it just in case you haven't seen the film, but it's an end twist that has been replicated at least twice to my knowledge. Once in a film called Cabin Fever, and also The Zombie Diaries. And if I cycle back around to the beginning of this film, again, and it's a classic beginning, even though it's got a lot of Barbara in it, I still really like it. A graveyard feels like the perfect place to get this series underway. You get that one shot of the zombie just coming into view in the background, and we still don't know if he's a human or a zombie at that point. I just think it's a great opening because we start off small and we become big later on. So we get this one zombie, and then like halfway through the film, we've got like 5 or 6 zombies congregating outside the house. And then by the end, it's like 50 swarming into the building. Barbara's brother's hilarious as well. he starts trying to wind up his sister, and he comes out with a line that might actually be something of a classic line. I'm sure I've heard people quote this line quite a lot. He says something like, "They're coming to get you, Barbara." And I swear the look on his face when he's saying that line, he's like a budget Christopher Reeve joking with Lois Lane at the Daily Planet on a quiet day. But on the whole, this film it's great. You know, if you can put up with some dodgy acting and bad characterization, which us horror fans are well used to doing, then this is still a film that's hugely enjoyable, even 40, 50 years down the line. So I'll quickly show you my copy of this on Blu-ray. Here it is. I do like the artwork on this particular re-release. The picture quality is superb. It is a HD transfer. The audio so-so. Although what I didn't mention is that there is some decent music on this. Just these really downbeat tones that play whenever zombies are eating flesh off some of their victims. Those scenes they just look great in black and white. I don't know why, but it doesn't freak me out at all when zombies are reaching into people and pulling out their guts and chewing on them and chewing on leg bones and stuff. Like when it comes to like Terrifier, a couple of the kills in that film, I literally feel like I'm going to puke my guts up just watching that stuff. But when it comes to zombies eating people alive sometimes, it doesn't affect me as much. Maybe I've just been watching Romero's films for like way too long. The only downside of this particular version, and probably most releases of Night of the Living Dead, to be honest, is that there's no features on it. I guess because the film is free on YouTube, they don't want to waste like loads of money putting effort into features when they know that a lot of people won't buy the film because it's already free, if you see what I mean. I'm sort of surprised that they still actually make copies of it at all, to be honest. But there we go. There is my copy of Night of the Living Dead. The only thing that remains now is to find out what score I'm going to give it. So let's check the bag of terror. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 bloody axes out of 5. This is a classic film, but I am taking off an entire axe because of the characters and acting in this. If that side of this film had been better written, this could have been a 5 out of 5 movie. But as it is, still an excellent 4 out of 5. It's a good start to our review series, and I'll be back soon to review Dawn of the Dead. Until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.